This is a little nucleus colony, and they ended up with laying workers. And I suspect because just after they were pulled as a nuke, that means frames taken out of a main colony, and I think a queen cell with them, it rained and it rained and it rained and it rained. So their queen, when she hatched, didn't really have much chance to get out and get mated. And if she did get out and try and get mated, it probably rained on her and she never came back to the hive. So they ended up with drone laying workers, which is when worker bees' ovaries developed due to a lack of brood pheromone and the queen around, and they start laying, and they are notoriously hard to correct. But this colony, as you can see, are now quite happy. Temperament good, you can always tell a happy colony. They're not grumpy. And that's because they now have a laying queen. Drone laying workers no more. And there we have brood. So how did we go from laying workers to a queen-right colony? Well, I'll tell you. Now, traditional logic says there is not a lot you can do for a laying worker colony. But I say there are a couple of things worth trying before you give up, shake the whole colony out in front of some other hives, take their hive away so that the bees all have to beg their way into the other hives, and the other hives won't let laying workers in. So things you can do are put a Formic Pro 7-day varroa treatment on the colony. Formic Pro strips, they come in a pack of 2, like that. That's enough for one hive, full hive. If you're doing a nuke, I would probably go with only one of the 2 strips because it'll be very, very strong in there. Otherwise it's very, very smelly, like an intense smell, and it works its way through the wax cappings into the cells where the developing brood is, and it kills the pheromites actually inside the cell. So it's pretty potent stuff. If you open one, do it away from your face because whew, it's going to make your eyes water. So yeah, probably 1 strip for a nuke, 2 strips for a full hive. And I found a couple of years ago that when I do a Formic Pro treatment, sometimes it can put queens off lay. So I thought, well, if it can do that to a queen and her ovaries, what about worker ovaries in drone laying worker colonies? So I tried it, and I did have some success. Several colonies, or nucleus colonies, actually the workers stopped laying, and then I was able very quickly to buy a laying queen, and they're usually delivered in 24, 48 hours when you buy them, and introduced her, and that worked well. Although sometimes the Formic Pro strips don't work, and that's where you come to the other option. Now, I should add, of course, that even if they didn't manage to turn off the drone laying worker ovaries, they will have taken down the varroa load in the colony, so it's not all a waste. So the other way to try and sort a drone laying worker colony, and one that I did with this colony, who I've now just put in a 6-frame nuke because they were in a 5-frame nuke, but they're doing so well they've just been upgraded, is to introduce a new queen via a queen cell. So if you put a frame of eggs into a drone laying worker colony, they probably will just cap them off and they won't draw out a queen cell because they think they've got someone laying already, the workers, the drone laying workers. Now, drone laying literally means that workers aren't mated, so they will only ever be able to lay drones, which are male bees, and so your colony will die because the drones will just be the only bees left. They don't do anything, they don't go collecting nectar, stores, pollen, anything like that, and it's a doomed colony. So you've got to do something. And this method of introducing a capped queen cell, you literally, if you have a colony that, with luck, has some queen cells, perhaps you had to take their queen out last week because they were making swarm preparations and they have gone on to make queen cells, and you would be taking them down to one this week, and you've got maybe 7 in there, you could save some. So You cut them out of the comb carefully, leaving, you might have to cut through some cells, but your goal here is to get a queen cell out without damaging the queen inside, or the developing queen inside. And so you remove the cell from the frame of the colony that has queen cells, and then try and keep it the right way up as well. I use an egg box with some tissue in all of the cosy little bits for the eggs, just to reduce the size, and that way I can keep my queen cells upright when I'm transferring them around the place. And then bring her to the colony that is drone laying workers, bring the queen cell, and find a cell that is probably going to be in the brood area, even though it's only drones, and literally transplant her on. Squash a bit of wax on that cell, and carefully, by pushing the wax that you've cut out with the queen cell into the frame, you can get a fairly good fix. Now, if you go back the next day or the day after and the bees in the drone laying worker colony have secured that transplanted queen cell with wax, they've structurally melded it to the frame with more wax, then that is a good sign, because that means that they are likely to want a queen. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any footage of me doing this. I'll have to get some next year when I do it. But it does work. I have managed to correct all my drone laying worker colonies this year by this method. So before you follow traditional advice of, there's nothing you can do for a drone laying worker colony, your best bet is just to shake them out in front of your other hives and take their hive away. And then the workers will beg their way into other colonies in other hives, and the other colonies and other hives won't let the laying workers in. That is the established wisdom of how to deal with drone laying worker colonies. But I would highly recommend you try the transplanted queen cell or the Formic Pro. If you don't have any other colonies, it's worth doing, obviously, the Formic Pro. Or you could put a shout out to other local beekeepers that if they're going into their hives and they get any queen cells from nice colonies, or they're raising their own queens, they may well be, and have spare queen cells, then see if you can get one that way to introduce or to your colony by transplanting it onto a frame in there. And then with luck, 7-8 days later, or sooner, your queen will hatch, and then you can always go and have a quick look. If you mark up the frame that you put the transplanted queen cell on, you'll know which one to have a quick look at, and so you can see if she's hatched. And then just wait, and with a bit of luck, within 10 days later or so, maybe 2 weeks, you will have some eggs, and your colony mood will be changed completely from sort of angry, rushing around the place, cross, roary bees of a drone laying worker colony to pretty calm, cheerful bees, because they've got baby bees, baby brood, eggs, tiny larvae to take care of again. And that's the state that a colony of bees wants to be in, and not a laying worker state. It is interesting when you've got drone laying workers that they won't draw out queen cells on a frame of donated eggs. But often you'll see them that they've tried to make a queen cup. Obviously it's not going to go anywhere because they don't have any fertilised eggs to go in it, only the drone laying worker eggs, which are unfertilised. But they are trying. Something in the colony knows that the drone laying worker state is not right. So it kind of makes sense that if you give them a capped queen cell, that they will want it, they will accept it. So definitely worth a go before any thoughts of shaking colonies out, because you might just save your colony. You may also have to transplant some old capped when your queen gets going, because you might not have that many bees left, specifically if it was a drone laying worker 5-frame nucleus colony. So having other colonies that you can, strong, I have to say, don't pinch them from anyone, but strong colonies that you can pinch a frame of old capped, and by that I mean capped worker brood that is dark brown or sort of quite brownish. The wax over the cells is quite brownish, because that means the bees have walked over it for a long time, so that means it's been capped for quite a while, hence it's due to hatch imminently. So that will boost numbers of bees and enable your new rescue queen, shall we call her, because she's actually rescued the colony, to establish and get going. And you may need to add food as well, because the colony, having been drone laying workers, probably hasn't got that many female worker bees left to go out and collect stores. So putting on some 1-to-1 sugar syrup in a nuke feeder is important too. And there you go, worth a shot. And then, just like we've just seen here, you'll be able to sit here like me next to your former drone laying worker colony and admire the fact they are bringing in pollen, because they're raising a whole new load of baby worker bees. Happy days. Just to clarify, when I'm speaking of transplanting the queen cell into the drone laying worker colony, you are of course transplanting her onto a frame of brood, albeit drone laying worker brood. But if there's brood there, there'll be bees there to tend it, and they'll keep an eye on the queen cell too. The only other method I've come across for trying to correct a drone laying worker colony is to introduce successive frames of open brood, so eggs and tinies, so that the brood pheromone is back in the colony, and that is supposed to eventually turn off the drone laying workers' ovaries. Only I think it takes about 3 brood cycles, so it's quite a protracted process, and introducing the queen cell is a much quicker solution. Now, if you have another colony to your drone laying worker colony, you can of course pull a small nucleus colony out of that other one and have them raise some queen cells for you, which is a in-house fix.